What's up, everybody? Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have yet another album review for you. Kind of a bonus one, since there were so many releases that came out this week that we decided, hell, why not do 6? So we are going over the debut full-length from Ashen Tomb, Ecstatic Death Reign. This also comes out on the 18th of October on Everlasting Spew Records. This band formed in Finland in 2021. Again, this is their debut album. They have one self-titled EP that came out in 2022. And this is some flat-out, like, old-school death metal. I initially was like, all right, well, it's Finnish, it's death metal. I already have something in mind in terms of what I hear in my head. And when I saw one of the song titles, I was like, oh man, there's probably a good chance this band likes Demolish. But honestly, I got like a little bit more as we listened to it.
Yeah, I'd never heard of this band either, but really, I mean, when you turn on the first song and you get through the first couple of riffs, to me that just said, you need to finish this record. That's what I could say. Because so many wonderful things, once again, that I like about death metal are found all over this record. So yeah, I decided after the first riff or two that maybe I would just listen to the next 43 minutes.
As did I. I mean, I know I was going to listen to the entire thing anyway.
Yep.
I mean, it's death metal. It's from Finland. Generally, that's enough to kind of lure me in.
Right.
I mean, honestly, if it's death metal, generally, that's enough to lure me in. And this is definitely like very latched on to, I would say, like 90s death metal overall. Again, initially, there's a certain sound I have in mind when it comes down to Finnish death metal, whether it's like old school or like relatively new, like bands like Gorophilia or Early Sentenced, Early Amorphous, Convulse, stuff like that. And this band definitely has a lot of that kind of like murky, more Finnish sound where it's like almost kind of death doom at times, but this album kind of pulled from a lot of camps that I really wasn't expecting, again, just basing on the fact that it was Finnish death metal. The opening track, Body Bog, honestly, I was kind of surprised to be drawing more comparisons to like almost more like brutal death metal bands, but like, older ones. I would say Suffocation and definitely like some early Broken Hope. The vocals on here, the guy alternates between like more of a straightforward death metal roar and like these brutal gurgles, which, I mean, you could definitely draw some comparisons to Demolish there too, but he's not quite at like, demonic bullfrog level.
Right.
But, I mean, they definitely add like a lot more, kind of like griminess to this.
Yeah, the first song definitely is a melting pot of most styles found in modernized death metal today. Slams, D beats, blast beats, tribal beats, tons of chugs, tons of tremolo, tons of a lot of things. They pretty much cover all their bases in the first song, but it opens up a whole lot more after you get beyond that. Like the song Catharsis Through Torture, that might be one of my favorite songs on the record. I'm not 100% as of this moment, but it is jam-packed full of the most gnarly tremolo, and I have become such a big fan over the last couple of years of low-end gnarly tremolo, and these guys just do it with almost fossilization perfection.
And they harmonize that to make it sound extra gnarly. Same thing on Anamorphosis and Cave of Staring Eyes. That sounds like a wonderful place. When it comes down to the riff work on here, there's a good balance of finding ones that sound like creepy and sinister and like a little bit more atmospheric, and then ones that are just like sledgehammer chugs and just flat out beat down grooves. And there's enough riff changes on here to kind of keep that whole feeling like kind of in flux.
There's a lot of twists and turns to all of these songs. Like even though there's a lot of stuff going on, it's still like pound for pound hits really hard every time they turn the corner.
I wouldn't call it like meat and potatoes, but I also wouldn't call it technical. Like, style-wise, I think it sits kind of somewhere in between there. Like, it is riff-happy. Like, there's constant fluctuation in terms of the riffs and even riff styles. And even the vocals have, like, enough, like, flair to them where they, kind of change around. And, like, brutal sections get, like, obviously the more brutal vocals. And then they have some thrashier sections where the vocals will kind of pick up in terms of their cadences. I would say, like, it's busy. It is busy finding all the right riffs to just beat you over the head with. Anamorphosis, which is probably one of my favorites on here, is just a buffet of absolutely killer riffs. You have this almost apocalyptic intro in there that sounds a lot like Witch Vomit. Like, the way they kind of, like, alternate between chugs and those, like, twisting, churning tremolos. Absolutely killer. But as the song goes on, you get, like, some savage breakdowns. there's some flat out thrashy moments on there where they just kind of just chug it right up.
A lot of these songs remind me of the way Hyperdontia flows, because you get a lot of like thrashy moments, like again in Catharsis Through Torture, like a lot of how those riffs were presented was done more of a thrashy style because there were a lot of D beats and a lot of like faster melodic riffing interplay. And I found that a lot of these songs kind of move that way because while there are a lot of things like blast beats, there's also a lot of things like D beats. They constantly rely on those D beats for a majority of the verses. And it just reminds me of how Hyperdontia is kind of thrashy and then they get downright dirty with their chugs and like it just kind of flows that way.
And again, like constantly like shifting around in terms of styles. Like again, the opening track, Body Bog, notably more brutal. I would say it's probably one of the most like straightforward, brutal tracks. Yeah. There's again like even kind of a slam breakdown on there, but there's also like some interesting changes in there where you get like some Demolich vibes in terms of the riffing. Like there's a crawling, like I wouldn't say like atonal, but like definitely dissonant melody in there, and kind of a, like an off-time rhythm. But when you get down to songs like Heartwarming, which I think is a fantastic title, that one kind of just goes for like classic death metal, like everything. The opening harmonies on there absolutely scream death or carcass, take your pick. Either answer I think is right.
Yeah.
And a little bit more on the groovy side. Honestly, in a way, it's probably one of the most melodic tracks, but again, it's like those more sinister melodies overall. The riffs are a little bit slowed down, like there's just like a little bit more breathing space in there. And again, those sinister melodies really kind of make the song open up. Especially when you get down to the end, it does pick up a little bit of the pace. But you get those like Cannibal Corpse, like hammer-ons or pull-offs. I'm not entirely sure which. I'm not a guitarist, but I know what the riffs on like, say, I don't know, Return to Flesh sound like off of The Bleeding. And these riffs sound very similar. And I did bring up that I had a feeling that this band, like Demolich, or I would even say Nile, when I saw one of the song titles, which this is a whole sentence, actually almost a short story. In fact, when I saw it, I said, what in the wild world of Demolich is this? And then when I heard it, it was like, holy fucking Nile, this sounds like Nile. Anyway, the song title, Ancient tombs sealed with dead tongues to preserve the hidden one slumbering in the bowels of the earth. And then in parentheses, because why not throw on more, mummified in cavernous darkness. Anyway, that ridiculously long song title, the song itself, I mean, it's the second longest track in here, but it opens up with Middle Eastern melodies. The setup is very Nile-ish. It is not like done in the more like, you know, insanely technical way that Nile does it, but it does have sort of kind of a Nile vibe to it. And I mean, I should have guessed that. It said mummified in the title. And tombs sealed, I mean, that's kind of Nile too, but I don't know. I mean, slumbering bowels of the earth, that screams Demolich too.
I mean, if you're gonna attempt to emulate either Demolich or Nile, I guess it's only fitting to also include a very long song title, because then how true would your tribute be? And that song, which I'm not going to read the title for again because I might fall asleep, you might fall asleep, that song title kind of fits the vibe of the song. The song overall is a very evil song, packed full of Middle Eastern melodies, as you would find in Nile. Also, some of the most soul-crushing growls, I think, are in that song. Like, he kind of abandons the weird gurgles and the odd screams and whatever and just goes full bore death growl, and it's pretty heavy. And then to top it all off, as if you haven't already heard everything in this song, they throw in a nasty death doom breakdown.
Lots of squealies in it, you know, big, just absolutely devastating riffs. It's one of the slower moments on here because I would say like pace-wise, this kind of stays, you know, either a little bit on the mid-tempo side or just flat out blasting. The last track in particular, In Death a Whisper, is just kind of a blast fest in itself, and it's just fast and menacing and fun. And that's kind of how I felt about like a good chunk of this. I thought like this is just like riffy fun, but I will say that sometimes this band tries to cram maybe too much in these songs. Now, some of them are a little bit longer, and I suppose that kind of warrants, you know, a fair amount of riff changes, but some of them feel like they kind of stretch out the songs a little bit too much. Like they're drawn out in favor of like, hey, we could have ended it here, but I have these riffs that I don't want to leave homeless, so let's throw them on there. Like Cave of Staring Eyes. I like that song. Actually, I like all these songs, but it is just kind of stretched out a little bit too long at the end. Like there's like some great breakdown points where it could have ended, but like, no, we got like some more tremolo riffs, some blast beat sections we already had organized, and again, they need a place to live.
But in favor of that song, too, I will say this, that while there are so many riffs in that song, they also draw them out enough for you to be able to latch onto them. It's not so rapid fire that you're like, oh, I didn't get to jam that part. Like, no, they actually take those riffs and jam each of them out to make them either A, catchy, or B, groovable. Like, they're not throwing in so much shit that they've lost the groove.
I also think the opening track, again, while I like it, is not indicative of, I would say, most of the album. That song, again, notably more brutal. Like, there's more brutal death metal elements kind of woven in this, like, old school death metal sort of vibe that's pretty much most of the album. While I like that it has, like, a lot of energy, it's a very explosive opener. It also, again, doesn't necessarily like set you up for the album. Personally, I think a song like Anamorphosis is more of a good setup song because, again, you get this, massive riff buffet, but it also sounds more like what is on this album overall. I would even say the same if Heartwarming was the opening track because, again, it kind of shows off one particular side of the band or at least like a particular influence of the band, and that isn't necessarily indicative of the entire album. Granted, I would say that this is kind of a blend. Like, this is Finnish death metal that doesn't necessarily sound exclusively like Finnish death metal.
Yep.
And I don't think it was influenced entirely by Finnish death metal. But it's 100% about riffs. Like, this is an absolutely savage, riffy album. And I have to say the production here is awesome. Now, this was mastered by Greg Chandler of Esoteric, who does a marvelous job. And it was mixed by someone with a very, very Finnish name that I looked at, and I didn't even attempt to say it. I didn't even write it down, honestly. His name was too complex. I mean, it was just probably like a standard, like, Finnish name, like our equivalent of like, oh yeah, his name's Ted Smith. But I suck at Finnish.
So overall, I'm going to give this record still 4 stars. I really dug the shit out of this album, albeit very busy and full of transitions and whatnot. It sounds filthy and grimy and evil and heavy as all get out. Once again, nasty down-tuned tremolos, I think, is the way to my heart. I really do. Not so much on the breakdowns. It was weird. I think the only time I ever really heard like a notable breakdown would be the Doom breakdown in the long song I'm not going to name again, and the first track that had the Suffocation breakdown. Beyond that, it's just a collection of heavy riffs. I guess the biggest problem overall that I saw was the songs are so full and so jam-packed full of stuff. All awesome stuff for that matter, but they're so full and so jam-packed full of stuff that by the time you get to the end, it does feel like you've kind of heard it before because you've got 3,000 things thrown at you. Nonetheless, it's done well. It's done with a lot of extreme precision and great talent. If you're a fan of bands like Suffocation, Hyperdontia, Fossilization, Demolich, Morbid Angel, Bolt Thrower, Phobophilic, Cruciamentum, and probably a myriad of other bands that are right up this band's alley, you're probably going to want to listen to this. I'd recommend checking it out.
I'm going to go ahead and give it 3.5 stars. It's close to the 4-star mark. I do think that it gets a little bit too busy for its own good, but again, it kind of gets busy with stuff I like, and it's, again, like kind of an all-over-the-place sort of like smorgasbord of death metal styles all kind of woven together really well. There's some absolutely banging tracks on here. Anamorphosis, Catharsis Through Torture, and Heartwarming in particular. Heartwarming warmed my heart because it sounded a lot like Heartwork and a little bit of leprosy. And it's a fine condition. It's all right. They give me pills or something. I don't know. Whatever. If you love your death metal riffy as hell, this is definitely a solid listen for you. Again, it doesn't come across too technical, but it is very busy, like lots of riff changes. And again, it can kind of wear on you maybe at certain points just because there's so much going on. But again, it's a lot of good things going on, so I can't really complain that much. If you're a fan of, again, I would say like Suffocation, definitely some Morbid Angel, Gorephilia. I would also say, some Cannibal Corpse too, and definitely Witch Vomit. Like, Witch Vomit was one of the bands that really kind of hit me, especially with like the frequent deep tremolos.
It's in the gross tremolos.
Yeah.
Yep.
And even sometimes in the vocal delivery, because they love to ham it up with all their, creepy vocals. But yeah, check this band out. Pretty solid listen. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We now have memberships, and if you are interested in them, there is a link down below in the video description. There's also the join button right down below the video. I gave us plenty of other options. It is only 99 cents, and the only perk so far that we are offering is a members-only stream, which we will probably start doing sometime in November after this influx of releases slows down, which is going to be a lot this month.
Yeah.
We also offer a booger troll. It's a weird sentence to say out loud, but I've been saying it out loud for a while now. It's still stupid. But yeah, that's our token emoji, at least for now. Like, I'll throw in something else stupid later. Trust me, I know us. But this is a new way to help support the channel if you would like. It's totally optional. We also still have thrallsmetal.com. All of our t-shirts and hats are there, and if you're interested in those, there's a link down below to that too. But yeah, thrallsmetal.com, join memberships, blah, all that.
Yeah, the reason we do all that stuff is because of you guys. We appreciate all of you for continuing to support Thralls of Metal. It means the world to us that you're actually just here and watching. Whether or not you join a membership is up to you, and that's not something we require, but we are thankful for you, all of you. Yeah, tons of stuff going on with us, as always. Album reviews, discography rankings, multiple discussion forums, multiple segments, Nick's never-ending collection updates. It just keeps on going and going like the Energizer Bunny, but that's not us. We're Thralls of Metal. Whatever. Blah, blah, blah. Thank you, guys. We appreciate all of you.
Yeah, if we were the Energizer Bunny, it would probably be covered in boogers because apparently that's our theme.
Whatever. It's part of our charm.
That's right, we have charm.
Yes.
I totally forgot.
Yes.
My parents forget too.
Yeah, mine definitely do.
Either way, you guys absolutely rule. Thank you so much for all your support. Tons of content coming your way. So one more big thank you from me, and we will catch you later.